Let me ask you something. How many times have you said you're going to change, yet everything stays the same? Think about it. Months go by, years pass, and you're still stuck with the same habits, the same fears, the same excuses. When I have more time, when things get better, when I feel ready. But let's be honest, that when never comes. And here's the question no one wants to ask themselves. Are you going to wait until life forces you to change? Or will you decide to do it before it's too late? In this video, I'll show you how to change your mind and transform your life before it's too late. And no, I'm not going to give you generic advice or empty motivational phrases. We're going to talk about real strategies, principles that have stood the test of time, the same ones the Stoics used to train their minds and become unbreakable in the face of any challenge. Because yes, change is possible, but only if you take control before life forces you to. Today, you'll discover the 13 key lessons that the ancient Stoics applied to strengthen their character, master their thoughts, and build a life truly worth living. And if they managed to do it through war, exile, and crisis, tell me what's stopping you. So if you're ready to stop postponing change and start shaping your own unshakable mindset, stick around until the end. Let's get started. I'm going to tell you the story of someone who was on the verge of losing everything, but at the last moment, made a decision that changed everything. Picture this. You're a man of power, wealth, and influence. You've spent your entire life working to get where you are, but in the blink of an eye, it all collapses. You're falsely accused of conspiring against the emperor. No trial, no evidence, no defense. Suddenly, you go from being in the highest circles of Rome to being exiled to a remote island. That's exactly what happened to Seneca. 8 years. 8 years in exile, far from his home, his career, and everything he had built. He could have drowned in despair, mourning his fate. He could have spent those years consumed by rage, complaining about the injustice he had suffered. But he didn't. Instead, he did something most people never dare to do. He changed his mind before life forced him to. In exile, he dedicated himself to writing, reflecting, and strengthening his character. He couldn't control his fate, but he could control his response. He couldn't change his circumstances, but he could change the way he perceived them. And he did. By the time he was allowed to return to Rome, he was no longer the same man who had left. His mindset had become unbreakable. Years later, he lost everything again. He was accused of another conspiracy, this time against Nero, and was ordered to take his own life. But even then, he remained calm. He accepted his fate with dignity, knowing that no one could take away the most valuable thing he had built, his mental strength. So tell me, if he could transform his mind through exile, betrayal, and death, with no excuses, no complaints, what's stopping you? Before we continue, if this content is bringing you value, consider subscribing and becoming an exclusive member to access unique benefits. And tell us in the comments, what shift in your mindset do you think would create a before and after moment in your life? We want to grow together with you. 1. Your mind is like a broken record. Have you ever felt like you're living the same day over and over again? As if everything is stuck on repeat, and no matter what you do, each morning brings you right back to the same place? It's like being the main character in Groundhog Day. You wake up at the same moment in the same place with the same people saying the same things. And the worst part? No matter how hard you try to do something different, everything just keeps repeating itself. Now tell me, isn't that exactly what happens to you sometimes? You wake up, check your phone without thinking, scroll through the same social media feeds with the same recycled news, eat breakfast half asleep, mentally complain about everything you have to do today, and walk out the door without having changed a thing. And then the rest of the day plays out the same way. You go to work on autopilot, not realizing that every passing minute is just a copy of yesterday. You complain about the same things, get distracted by nonsense, procrastinate on what really matters, and when the day ends, you tell yourself, tomorrow, I'll do things differently. But when you wake up, it all starts again. And so the days go by, then weeks, then years, Until one day you realize you've been running in circles, repeating the same patterns over and over, without actually moving forward. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it." But tell me, what if you always react the same way because you're running on outdated mental software? Imagine your mind as an old operating system full of glitches. It doesn't matter how powerful the machine is. If you keep running the same faulty programs, you'll always get the same results. The Stoics understood this centuries ago, which is why they practiced self-observation. Instead of acting without thinking, they analyzed themselves. They watched their reactions, identified their patterns, and corrected them. They refused to let their minds run on autopilot. Because the truth is, we don't just repeat our actions, we repeat our thoughts. Have you noticed that most of your worries are the same ones you had months ago? It's like a broken record playing the same track on repeat. I'm not good enough. This won't work out. What if everything goes wrong? And as long as that voice keeps playing in your head, nothing outside will change. So how do you break the cycle? By taking control and rewiring your mind. And no, you don't need a dramatic revolution or a sudden radical change overnight. The first step, identify your loops. Pay attention to the thoughts and habits you repeat without questioning them. Do you always complain about the same things? Do you always get distracted in the same ways? Do you always postpone what you know you should be doing? Then change just one small thing each day. You don't need a master plan, just a tiny shift to break the pattern. If you always check your phone first thing in the morning, leave it in another room and start your day without distractions. If you always put off an important task, tackle it first before anything else. If you constantly repeat negative thoughts, replace them with questions that challenge you. What can I do today to improve just 1%? Because in the end, if your mind is a broken record, at least make sure it's playing the right song. That's the difference between staying trapped in the same day over and over, or finally starting to transform your life. 2. What's holding you back? Imagine trying to step out of your house, but wait, you can't. Something is holding you back. You look around, try to push forward with more force, but it's useless. What's going on? Then you glance down, and there it is. Your foot is shackled by a thick, rusted chain tied to a heavy concrete block. You try to loosen it, pull harder, even struggle in frustration. But nothing. You're stuck. And here's the strangest part. That chain was always there. You just never noticed it. Until now. That's exactly how many of the things that hold us back in life work. Beliefs, fears, relationships, things that bind us without us even realizing. We want to move forward, but something keeps pulling us back. We don't understand why we feel stuck, why nothing seems to change, until we finally look down and see what's been holding us all along. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you encounter an obstacle, make it your path." But tell me, how can you turn an obstacle into an opportunity if you don't even know what's blocking you? Marcus Aurelius had every reason to feel trapped. He was the emperor of Rome, carrying an immense burden on his shoulders. Wars, betrayals, plagues, everyone expecting him to solve the greatest problems of his time. He could have lived in a constant state of overwhelm and frustration, but he didn't. Why? Because he refused to let his own thoughts hold him back. He analyzed his emotions and turned every challenge into an opportunity to strengthen his character. He didn't allow any invisible chains to restrain him. The same thing happened to Irene Agbontain. She grew up in a family where the expectations were clear. If you wanted to be successful, you had to follow a traditional path, study a prestigious career like medicine, engineering, or law. But deep down, she felt her path was different. She had always dreamed of working in fashion, but that idea seemed impossible. How could she pursue something that wasn't considered a serious profession in her environment? For years, she told herself she had to settle for what was expected of her, until one day she asked herself a question that changed everything. What if this isn't true? What if I actually can do it? That single thought shattered the invisible chain holding her back. She decided to challenge the norm, bet on her passion, and launched her own brand specializing in fashion for tall women. Today, her company has grown to showcase at Lagos Fashion Week and collaborate with major brands. Irene could have let her limiting beliefs hold her back forever, but instead, she chose to break free and rewrite her story. So now tell me, what chains are you still dragging? What thoughts do you repeat to yourself every day that keep you stuck in the same place? If you want to move forward, the first thing you need to do is a mental inventory of everything weighing you down. Write it down in a journal or on a piece of paper. Whatever you feel is holding you back. Maybe it's thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, or it's too late to change. Maybe it's a relationship that drains more from you than it gives. Or maybe it's an excuse you've been repeating for years. Once you've identified it, challenge it. Ask yourself, is this really true? Or have I just believed it for so long that I've never questioned it? And if you realize something isn't serving you, replace it with a more useful thought. If you always tell yourself, I can't do this, change the question, what would I do if I truly believed I could? Because in the end, you can't move forward toward a better life if you're still chained to the same old beliefs. Letting go isn't easy, but it's the first step toward transformation. Now tell me, what belief, fear, or excuse are you going to leave behind today? Drop it in the comments, and let's start breaking those chains together. 3. Your brain can change. If I told you that you could update your brain like an app, would you believe me? A lot of people think that who we are is fixed, that if we're born a certain way, we'll stay that way forever. But the truth is, our brain is far more flexible than we imagine. It can be reprogrammed. Think of it like clay. At first, it has a set shape because it's been molded over time by habits, beliefs, and experiences. But if you warm it up and start working with it, you can reshape it completely. This is called neuroplasticity, and it's more incredible than you might think. Your brain is constantly under construction, like a city being rebuilt. Every time you repeat a habit or learn something new, it's like paving a new highway. The more you use it, the faster and stronger it becomes. But what happens if you stop using it? Weeds take over and eventually, it disappears. Here's the fascinating part. A study published in Psychology Today confirms that this ability allows us to change, learn, and adapt throughout our entire lives. What you think and do today isn't just a habit. It's literally reshaping the structure of your mind. Amazing, right? Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "As long as we live, we learn." He understood that our minds are constantly shaped by what we practice, whether virtues or vices. That's why he made self-reflection a daily habit. At the end of each day, he would review his actions and ask himself, did I do the right thing? Could I have acted better? He didn't punish himself for his mistakes, but he also didn't ignore them. He knew that improving the mind was a lifelong practice. Now imagine you're someone who's always impatient. You get frustrated waiting in line, annoyed when someone takes too long to reply, and you always say, "That's just who I am. I can't help it." But the truth is, you've repeated impatience so many times that it's become your default reaction. You've reinforced that highway in your brain. But here's the good news, my friend. You can change that path. How? By changing your internal language. Instead of saying, "That's just who I am," say, "Right now I feel this way." That small shift opens the door to change. Then, repeat new actions until they become part of you. If you struggle with patience, start practicing it deliberately. For example, if you've made plans to meet a friend at 8 and you know they're always late, show up at 7:50. And instead of scrolling through your phone or getting irritated, observe your surroundings, listen to the sounds around you, take a deep breath, and just let time pass without anxiety. You might be thinking, what a waste of time. But ask yourself, are you really wasting time? Or are you rewiring your brain to become unbreakable? Isn't that worth it? Remember, you are not stuck as the person you are today. Every day is a chance to rewrite your story. Your brain has the ability to adapt and transform your life. But don't forget, change is in your hands. 4. Stop hurting your mind. My friend, if your mind could leave you a review like a restaurant or an online store, what rating do you think you'd get? A glowing 5 stars for excellent care? or a shameful one-star review for constant mistreatment? Think about it. You spend your day bombarding it with negative news, social media full of comparisons, worries that aren't even within your control, poor nutrition, lack of sleep, and then you wonder why you feel exhausted, anxious, or mentally foggy. It's like dumping garbage into a car and then being surprised when it won't start. Epictetus once said, "We cannot choose our circumstances, but we can choose how we face them." The Stoics valued mental clarity above all else. They knew that a mind overloaded with noise and distractions becomes weak, reactive, and unstable. That's why they avoided anything that pulled them away from virtue. They didn't fill their days with useless worries or let their attention be hijacked by things beyond their control. But tell me, what happens when you don't do this? When you let everything around you pollute your mind without realizing it? Now, imagine someone who spends the entire day sabotaging themselves mentally. Before they do anything, they're already expecting the worst. They're about to call their brother, and before even dialing, they think, "He's definitely going to say something that will annoy me." They go out to eat with friends, but in their mind, they're already saying, "The food is going to be terrible and ruin my day." They walk into a meeting and tell themselves, "I'm going to embarrass myself. No one is going to like me." And just like that, without anyone doing anything to them, they're already living in a state of stress, frustration, and anger over things that haven't even happened yet. Their mind fills with tension, their mood crashes, and worst of all, they almost always end up proving themselves right. It's exhausting just thinking about it, isn't it? Because when you go through life expecting the worst, you'll always find reasons to see it. It's like a leak in the ceiling. At first, it's just a small drip, barely noticeable. It doesn't seem like a big deal, so you ignore it. But over time, the water keeps dripping, slowly weakening the structure. Then one day, without warning, boom, the ceiling collapses. We don't want that happening to you, right? So how can you stop damaging your mind? First, reduce what pollutes your mind. You can't control everything happening in the world, but you can control what you give your attention to. Do you really need to start your day with negative news? Spend hours scrolling through social media, consuming other people's lives? Listen to people who do nothing but complain and drain your energy? Decide what deserves space in your mind and what doesn't. Second, make time for silence and daily reflection. You don't need to isolate yourself from the world, but you do need to give your mind a break. A few minutes without distractions, without screens, without noise. Maybe it's going for a walk without your phone, writing in a journal, or simply sitting in silence and observing your thoughts. The Stoics did this every day to strengthen their mental clarity. And third, ask yourself, is this making me stronger or weaker? Before getting sucked into a pointless argument, before filling your mind with anxiety-inducing information, before surrounding yourself with people who only bring negativity, stop and ask yourself this. If the answer isn't that it makes you stronger, then it's time to let it go. Because in the end, if you knew you were drinking something that was poisoning you little by little, would you keep drinking it? Then why do it to your mind? The choice to protect it is in your hands, and once you do, you'll see how everything starts to change. 5. Why do things that don't matter affect you? My friend, let's be honest. How many times a day do you get upset over things that have no real importance? From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, tiny details manage to get under your skin, sometimes without you even realizing it. If you got $1 every time something insignificant annoyed you, you'd probably be a millionaire by now. A thoughtless comment, traffic making you late, slow Wi-Fi, a waiter taking too long to serve you. And there you are, stacking up frustration. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself why you let these things affect you so much? Marcus Aurelius had a clear answer to this. If something external bothers you, it is not the event itself, but your opinion of it. In other words, what really upsets you isn't what happens, it's the story you tell yourself about it. Think about Marcus Aurelius himself. As Emperor of Rome, he lived through wars, betrayals, and constant crises. If he had let every obstacle shake him, he would have spent his entire life in a state of distress. But he understood that the key wasn't controlling the world. It was controlling his own reaction to it. He didn't waste energy on things beyond his control. Instead, he focused on what he could manage: his thoughts, his decisions, and his character. Now, imagine you're sick. Nothing serious, but you feel terrible. You just want to get better as soon as possible. So you set an expectation in your mind. By tomorrow, I need to be fully recovered. Then you start obsessing over every detail. You check your temperature every hour, search symptoms online, and get frustrated because the fever isn't going down as fast as you'd like. But here's the truth. Your body has its own timeline. No matter how much you want to control your illness, your body will heal at its own pace. And the worst part? When tomorrow arrives and you're still not feeling well, you're not just sick anymore. You're frustrated too. You've wasted energy fighting something that was never in your hands to begin with. See the problem? We spend too much time resisting things that simply are, and this is where the Stoic technique of indifference comes into play. So, what should you do? Observe without reacting. The next time something insignificant bothers you, instead of immediately responding, pause for a moment and just observe it. Don't judge it. Don't fuel it with more thoughts. Just look at it as if you were an outside spectator. Then shift your focus to what actually deserves your energy. I've got an idea. Let me challenge you. Right now, choose something you can't control and let it go. Maybe it's someone's opinion that upsets you, a situation that didn't go as planned, or even a negative thought that keeps replaying in your head. Whatever it is, drop it. And here's the real test. When you feel your mind drifting back to it, remind yourself that it's out of your hands and redirect your attention to something you can change. If you want to transform your life, you first need to free your mind from everything that drains it. You can't become strong and unbreakable if you keep allowing every little thing to steal your peace. So tell me, what's the first thing you're going to let go of today? Drop it in the comments and start training your mind to focus on what truly matters. 6. What you repeat defines you. Think about this. What's the phrase you repeat about yourself the most? Maybe it's "I'm so forgetful," or "I've never been good at sports," or maybe "I have no discipline." It might seem like just a way of speaking, but what you tell yourself every day doesn't just stay in words. It becomes your reality. If you constantly repeat that you're clumsy, guess what? You'll always be dropping things. If you keep saying you're bad at math, you'll never put in the effort to improve. If you believe you lack discipline, you'll unconsciously look for excuses to quit everything you start. But here's the good news. If this works in the negative, it also works in the positive. Your repeated actions shape your identity. Seneca once said, "Each day is a life in miniature." And if you think about it, he was right. Everything you are today is simply the result of hundreds of days lived with the same thoughts, habits, and decisions. If today you live in a rush, without discipline, and constantly putting things off, how do you expect your future to be any different? But this also means that if you change what you do in just one day, you're already changing your entire life in miniature. Now imagine how Seneca applied this in his own life. He didn't wake up saying, "Today, I want to be wise." He simply acted wisely every day. He reflected, wrote, questioned his thoughts, and put his principles into practice. By repeating this, it became part of who he was. It wasn't a single decision. It was the sum of many small ones that forged his character. Now picture this. You want to start a business. Nothing big, just a small idea you've been thinking about. You promise yourself you'll be disciplined, that you'll work on it every day. But then, the excuses start. "I'm too tired today. I'll do it tomorrow. I need to wait until I'm better prepared." And without realizing it, the version of you that procrastinates is the one you practice the most. Day after day, you repeat the same pattern. Until eventually, you start defining yourself as someone who never follows through. But don't worry, because like I said before, you can use this in your favor. First, make it easier to win. If there's a habit you struggle with, make it just a little easier to start. For example, if you want to start running but never do, leave your shoes by the door before going to bed. That way, when you wake up, the first thing you see is a reminder of your commitment. The less resistance you have at the beginning, the easier it is to build the habit. Second, try the 3-day challenge. Most people fail because they think too far ahead and get overwhelmed, so simplify it. Just do it for 3 days. That's it. On the 4th day, your brain will already start to register it as automatic. And before you know it, you'll have repeated it so many times that it will become part of your identity. Think of it this way: every action you repeat is like a sculptor chiseling away at a statue. Day after day, you're shaping your character, your mindset, and your destiny. If you repeat indecision, you become someone who always hesitates. If you repeat discipline, you become unstoppable. So the real question isn't what do you want to achieve in the future, but what are you practicing today? Because if you want to become unbreakable, you first have to train your mind so that every action you repeat brings you closer to the strongest version of yourself. 7. Your environment shapes you. My friend, tell me who you spend time with, and I'll tell you the state of your mind. Have you ever noticed how you start adopting expressions, gestures, or even habits from the people around you? Our environment has a silent but powerful influence on shaping our thoughts, beliefs, and ultimately, our actions. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, advised, "Surround yourself with those who make you better." The Stoics understood that to reach virtue and wisdom, it was essential to be around people who embodied those qualities. They sought the company of mentors and role models, fully aware that their surroundings directly influenced their character. Psychologist Marian Rojas Estapé puts it simply, your environment isn't just another detail in your life. It's a decisive factor in how you think, how you feel, and even how your brain functions. It happened to me the other day. I met up with a friend who constantly complains. He finds something negative in every situation, always has a reason to see the worst in things. I thought it wouldn't affect me, that it would just be another conversation. But when I got home, I felt exhausted. My head felt heavy. And worst of all, I was angry at the world, for no apparent reason. And that's no coincidence. According to Marian, our brain absorbs the energy of those around us, for better or worse. And in my case, definitely for worse. This is more serious than it seems. Stress and negativity are contagious. Science confirms it. When you're surrounded by toxic or pessimistic people, your brain increases its production of cortisol, the stress hormone. In other words, being in an environment that drains you doesn't just demotivate you, it physically affects you. But here's the good part. Your environment doesn't just have the power to pull you down, it can also lift you up. And yes, you can use it to your advantage to shape your mind and get closer to what you truly want. Want to know how? First, use the elevator effect. If you want to improve in any area, spend more time with people who already live the way you aspire to. For example, if you want a healthier lifestyle, join groups or communities that value fitness and balanced nutrition. Their energy and habits will influence you in a positive way, making your own change easier. Second, cut out relationships that don't add value. Plain and simple. If it doesn't add, at least make sure it doesn't take away. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Just reduce the time and energy you invest in people who don't contribute anything meaningful to your life. This doesn't mean being insensitive. It means prioritizing your mental and emotional well-being. Lastly, design an environment that supports your goals. If you want to improve your focus and productivity, create a space that helps you do that. Keep your workspace clean, free of distractions, and decorated in a way that inspires you. Your physical environment can boost your mind and help you achieve your goals. Think about this. If your current environment isn't pushing you to be better, why are you still in it? To transform your life and become unbreakable, it's crucial to surround yourself with influences that lift you up and push you forward. Remember, you have the power to choose your environment. Do it wisely, and watch how your mind and life begin to change. 8. Your thoughts shape your life. Your thoughts are like an Instagram filter you apply to the world. If you use a dark, gloomy filter, everything will look sad and dull. But if you switch the filter, the same image can suddenly appear warmer, brighter, and full of life. Think about this. It's Monday morning, and as soon as your alarm goes off, the first thing you say is, "I hate Mondays." From that moment on, you've already decided your day will be terrible. You leave home with a bad attitude, every minor inconvenience feels like a tragedy, and every little detail confirms what you already believed. I was right. Mondays are awful. But tell me, is Monday really the problem? Or is it your mental filter ruining it? Dr. Daniel Amen suggests something as simple as starting your day by saying, "Today is going to be a great day." Sound silly? Well, it turns out that once you say it, your brain starts looking for reasons to make that statement true. A small shift in your thoughts can affect how you react, how you make decisions, and ultimately, how you live your life. Now, imagine Marcus Aurelius in the middle of battle, soldiers shouting, arrows flying, and he's thinking, "Today is going to be a disaster. We're definitely going to lose." Sounds ridiculous, right? A leader who enters combat with that mindset has already been defeated before the fight even begins. So what did Marcus Aurelius do instead? He trained his mind. While others were paralyzed by fear or despair, he always held on to one simple truth. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. And that was the key. Because when your mind is trained to focus on solutions instead of problems, you become unbreakable. So the real question is, how can you hack your mind so it works for you instead of against you? How can you make your thoughts transform your life? First, do the thought test. Every time a negative thought appears in your mind, pause for a second and ask yourself, is this thought helping me or sabotaging me? If it's just adding unnecessary drama, throw it straight into the mental trash bin. Second, exaggerate the positive. If your usual thought is, "This Monday is going to be exhausting," flip it to the extreme opposite. "This Monday is going to be the best day of the week." It might sound over the top, but your brain will start searching for ways to justify it. Third, use the mental placebo effect. Have you ever seen someone walk into a room with insane confidence, even when they had no reason to? That's because the brain believes whatever you repeat with enough conviction. Act as if you have confidence, and watch how your attitude, your body language, and even the way others perceive you starts to change. Because in the end, it's not life that makes you miserable. It's how you choose to see it. And if you truly want to be unbreakable, you have to start training your mind to see opportunities instead of problems. 9. Trust yourself. If you're waiting for everyone to applaud before you take action, get ready to stay stuck forever. It's like a coffee maker refusing to brew coffee until someone says, "Wow, you heat water so well." Or like your phone waiting for a standing ovation before turning on. Sounds ridiculous, right? But that's exactly what we do when we need other people's approval before making every decision. Let me tell you about Alejandro Sencerado, a physicist who spent years trapped in the need for external validation. In his article, The Perfection Deception, he admits that he would spend hours checking how many likes his latest post had. He analyzed every comment, compared himself to others, and sought approval in every achievement. Yet no matter what he did, it never felt like enough. Until one day he asked himself a key question: am I living for myself or for others? That's when he decided to break the cycle. He set himself a challenge to stop seeking validation. He stopped obsessing over how he looked to others and focused on what he truly wanted to do. He allowed himself to make mistakes without feeling ashamed. He disconnected from external noise and focused on what genuinely made him happy. The result? Peace, freedom, real happiness. Because when you stop living for other people's approval, you finally start living. And what about you, my friend? How many times have you fallen into this trap without even realizing it? Maybe you can relate. You don't make any decisions without other people's approval. You want to change jobs, but you're waiting for your family to tell you it's a good idea. You want to start going to the gym, but you need your friends to come with you so you don't feel awkward. You can't even pick out your clothes without asking someone if it looks good. And what happens when you don't get the reaction you expected? Your confidence, boom, goes straight to the ground. Do you know what Epictetus would say to you? Other people's opinions and problems can be contagious. Don't sabotage yourself by unconsciously adopting negative and unproductive attitudes from those around you. So, how can you change your mindset and start trusting yourself more? First, try ignore mode. Do something you would normally share with others, but don't tell anyone. Want to write? Do it without thinking about who will read it. Love dancing? Dance without recording it. Act like no one is watching, and notice how it feels to do something purely for yourself. Second, think about the worst-case scenario. What would actually happen if you made that decision without asking for anyone's approval? If you started that project without waiting for permission? Most of the time, the worst-case scenario is nowhere near as bad as you imagine. Third, try a validation detox. Go an entire day without asking for opinions, without checking social media to compare your life to others, and without relying on a like to feel good. Just one day where the only thing that matters is your decisions. You'll be surprised how freeing it can be. Now tell me, if nobody ever congratulated you for what you do, would you still do it? If the answer is no, there's your problem. Because if you want to become unbreakable, you first have to learn to trust yourself without needing anyone's approval. Real strength doesn't come from applause. It comes from knowing you're doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. 10. Don't wait to change. Imagine you're sitting in a waiting room. Everything seems normal until a doctor walks in with a serious expression and says, "We have the results." There's something you need to know. In that instant, time freezes. Your mind starts racing. Why didn't I take better care of my health? Why didn't I make better use of my time? Why did I keep putting off the things I truly wanted to do? Now take a deep breath, because this hasn't happened. But think about it. If that conversation were real, what would you start doing differently today? Most people don't change until they have no other choice. They don't take care of their health until something goes wrong. They don't work on their happiness until their relationship falls apart. They don't leave the job they hate until they get fired. It's as if we need an earthquake to shake us into action, when in reality, we could start changing before life forces us to. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly, "Do not live as if you were going to live 10,000 years. While you're alive, while it's possible, become good." And he was right. You won't live 10,000 years. And let's be honest, can you even imagine how exhausting that would be? Centuries of watching trends change, relearning technology every decade, trying to have conversations with new generations that you barely understand. It would be a never-ending struggle. Luckily, that's not the case. But here's the bad news. You don't have all the time in the world either. Every day you delay change is a day you'll never get back. Look at Egan Bernal. One day he was training, just like he had done thousands of times before, when suddenly in an instant his life changed. He crashed into a parked bus at high speed. The impact was brutal. Fractured spine, femur, kneecap. Doctors weren't sure if he'd ever walk again, let alone compete. He could have given up right then and there. Most people would have, but Egan didn't wait for life to decide for him. From his hospital bed, his body shattered but his mind intact, he made a decision. He was coming back. Every day of rehab was a battle. The pain was unbearable, the uncertainty overwhelming. But his mindset shifted. It was no longer just about winning races. It was about defying the impossible. And he did it. Just days ago, he broke the record for the Alto de Patios climb in Bogota. Not only did he get back on the bike, he came back stronger than ever. But listen, you don't need to wait for life to knock you down to wake up. You can decide to change right now. Here are 3 ways to train your mind for that. First, imagine the worst has already happened. Close your eyes and ask yourself, if today I received news that changed everything, What would I regret not having done? Maybe it's not telling someone how you feel. Maybe it's not starting that project. Maybe it's not taking better care of your body, or not spending enough time with the people you love. Don't wait until it's too late. Start today, even if it's just with a small step. Second, test your resistance to change with mini discomfort challenges. Get used to stepping out of your comfort zone, on purpose. Do you always take your coffee with sugar? Try it without. Are you afraid of public speaking? Force yourself to ask a question in a meeting. Do you always take the same route to work? Change it. The goal isn't just the challenge itself, it's training your brain to understand that stepping into the unknown isn't a threat. That adaptation is part of life. Third, ask yourself this question every day. What would I change today if I knew I only had 1 year left to live? And when you find the answer, do something about it. You don't have to transform your entire life overnight, but you do have to start moving in the right direction. Don't wait for life to force you to change. Decide to change first. That's where real mental strength is. That's how you become unbreakable. 11. Discipline beats motivation. My friend, if you're waiting to feel like doing something, better grab a comfortable chair, because you'll be waiting forever. Do you know what motivation really is? A trap. It's like that friend who tells you they'll be there in 5 minutes, but hasn't even gotten in the shower yet. And if you let that friend decide your future, you'll stay stuck while others cross the finish line. Seneca put it perfectly. The days that count are the ones when you do the right thing, even when you don't feel like it. Think about it. Picture Seneca at the end of an exhausting day. No energy left. Not in the mood to write his letters or train his mind. He could have told himself, I don't feel like thinking about virtue today. I'll do it tomorrow. But if he had done that, he wouldn't be the legendary thinker we know today. When you only act when you feel motivated, you're like a ship drifting in the wind, going wherever your fleeting moods take you. But if you learn to move forward even when you don't want to, that is when you take control. Believe me, you're not the only one who depends on motivation. This happens to everyone. How many times have you said you'll start exercising, only to quit because I just don't feel like it today? Or you start a project, but abandon it as soon as the excitement fades? It's the same cycle over and over. Initial excitement, loss of interest, zero results. There's a phrase by Marcus Aurelius that I love. If you don't feel like training, train without feeling like it. But this doesn't just apply to exercise, it works for everything in life. Think about it. You don't wait to feel motivated to take a shower, do you? Of course not. You do it because it's part of your routine. The same principle applies to everything else. Don't feel like working on your project? You still have to do it if you want to move forward? Want to change your mindset and build the life you dream of? Then act, even when you don't want to. Because here's the danger. If you only take action when you feel motivated, you're lost. So let's break that cycle. Want discipline to win over motivation? Here's how. First, use the 2-minute rule. If there's something you don't want to do, commit to doing it for just 2 minutes. Don't want to write? Write for 2 minutes. Don't feel like working out? Do it for 2 minutes. Most of the time, once you start, you won't stop. It's like opening the door of a moving car. The momentum carries you forward. Second, make a social contract. Tell someone about your goal, not just in passing, but with a real commitment. For example, if you want to start reading, tell a friend, if I don't finish this book in a month, I owe you dinner at your favorite restaurant. Now, suddenly, skipping out comes with consequences. Someone else expects you to follow through. And let's be real, you don't want to lose the bet and end up paying for their meal, right? Third, set rules for your mind, just like in school. Your brain loves instant gratification, so set a condition. I can only watch my favorite show after I've done what I need to do. It's a simple trick, but it's powerful. You're training your brain to associate discipline with reward. Let's be clear, motivation is a luxury, discipline is a necessity. If you want to be unbreakable, start today. Do something without feeling like it, and enjoy the victory of having done it anyway. That's where real strength is. 12. Your future depends on today. Tell me something, my friend. How do you picture yourself in 5, 10, or 20 years? Do you see yourself successful, living the life you've always dreamed of? Or do you think of it as something that will just happen if you're lucky? Here's the truth no one tells you. Your future isn't a mystery. It's a mathematical equation. It's not about wishes or good fortune. It's about what you do today. Because what you do today is directly proportional to what you will achieve tomorrow. Imagine two paths in front of you. On one, you take the easy way out every day. You procrastinate on what's important, let opportunities slip by, waste your energy on things that don't add value. It doesn't seem like a big deal, right? One wasted day doesn't feel like the end of the world, but now, fast forward. One day turns into a week into a month into a year. And before you know it, 5 years have passed, and you're still in the same place. Epictetus put it best in one sentence. Every choice brings you closer to or further from the person you want to be. And that's exactly how it works. Every single day, with every single decision. There is no in-between. You're either moving forward or falling behind. Let's say your dream is to buy your ideal home, but every time you get paid, you spend without thinking, going out, impulse shopping, unnecessary expenses. Each euro that slips away is one less brick in that house you want to build. But now imagine taking a different approach. Every time you earn money, you set some aside, even if it's just a little. You build a habit of saving, you find ways to invest. You educate yourself about managing your finances. A small sacrifice today turns into a massive reward tomorrow. And the same goes for everything: your health, your relationships, your personal growth. You don't need huge changes. You just need to start making better decisions every day. So, how can you rewire your mind and become unbreakable? Not just now, but for life. First, take one action today that benefits your future. Ask yourself, what can I do right now that moves me closer to what I want? For example, you're about to spend money on a new pair of shoes that you don't really need. Pause. Ask yourself, does this purchase bring me closer to my dream home, or push it further away? You don't need to make all the right decisions at once. Just one better decision today. Second, use the future test. When you're hesitating on whether to do something or not, imagine that you've already done it and ask yourself, how will I feel afterward? Proud or regretful? If you know your future self will thank you, then do it. Remember, the future isn't something that just happens to you. You are writing it right now with every choice you make. So tell me, 5 years from now, will you be where you want to be? Or will you regret not starting today? 13. Train your mind every day. Imagine walking into a gym for the first time. You look around and see weights, training machines, people pushing themselves, breaking their own limits. You know that if you want a strong body, lifting a weight just once isn't enough. It's the constant repetition that makes you stronger, faster, more powerful. Now tell me, what about your mind? Because your mind also needs training, but most people leave it on autopilot. They don't realize that every single day they are choosing between strengthening it or weakening it. If you don't train it, it becomes fragile. Any criticism tears it down. Any obstacle paralyzes it. Any fear controls it. But if you train it, if you challenge it a little every day, it becomes unbreakable. And when the moment comes to face real-life challenges, it doesn't waver. It endures. It overcomes. It grows. It's no coincidence that the most successful people talk about the power of mental training. Will Smith puts it clearly, I don't consider myself particularly talented, but I have a ridiculous work ethic. And that work ethic is nothing more than mental discipline. He doesn't wait to feel motivated. He trains his mind to do what needs to be done, no matter what. The Stoics already knew this. Epictetus said, "No one progresses without effort. He who refuses to train remains weak." It's that simple. You can't leave your mental strength to chance. You have to exercise it like a muscle, day after day. So how do you do it? Here are 3 training exercises that will make you unbreakable. First, train your focus. Every time you feel your mind drifting toward useless worries, what others think or fear of the future, stop. Ask yourself, does this make me stronger or weaker? If the answer is that it weakens you, shift your focus. It's like adjusting the aim of an archer. Where you place your attention is where your energy will go. Second, build emotional resilience. Do you know the greatest destroyer of minds? Comfort. We've been taught that the slightest discomfort is a problem, but in reality, it's an opportunity to train. Face small discomforts on purpose. Push yourself a little longer in your workout. Resist the urge to check your phone while waiting. Go for a walk when it's cold. Mental resilience is built through daily challenges. Third, challenge your limiting thoughts. Your mind will tell you that you can't, that it's not worth it, that it's too late. Spoiler, it's not true. Most limits only exist in your head. Think you can't improve at something? Prove your mind wrong. Do the opposite of what fear tells you. Training your mind every day isn't optional. It's the difference between living at the mercy of circumstances or being in control of your life. Don't wait for life to force you to become strong. Do it now. Because when your mind is unbreakable, nothing can stop you. Transforming your life isn't about magic or luck. It's the result of every decision you make, every thought you train, every step you take, even when you don't feel like it. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment, but about creating it through every action, every challenge you face, and every habit you build. Because real transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens the moment you decide to change your mind, to take control, and to stop being just a spectator in your own life. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "Today I decide to transform my mind." That way, I'll know who the true Stoic warriors are who made it to the end. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a like so you don't miss out on what's coming next. I also invite you to check out our playlist, which you'll see on the screen. It's packed with ideas, stories, and advice to help you navigate life with more wisdom and confidence. Click it, and let's keep moving forward together. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your inner Stoic.